I've also been reflecting on this topic for some time. But for now, to start with, can we all just take a moment, just perhaps to think of a time in your life, recent times or before or whenever, when you felt really safe. And the feeling of comfort, the feeling of safety, security. So think of a time in your life. Just take a few moments. You're perhaps just joining in. So as you relax and tune in, think of a moment when you felt really safe. Okay, so hope you had that opportunity to go back in time. And as you actually remember that time, we feel that safety even now, recreating it. And so, feeling safe is when perhaps we feel we are at home, we are with in the company of the ones that we love, that love us, um, in an environment which is filled with love and goodness. So let's reflect on what is it that makes us feel insecure or unsafe. And then through that, we can look at what can we do to make us feel safe or create that safe space for ourselves. So one of the things that we often understand is when we are not feeling safe, we feel a feeling of um, perhaps fear. I mean, that's definitely connected a lot with feeling unsafe and insecure. So, even if I am not particularly um, in a situation that is fearful, sometimes the atmosphere, the environment, especially in today's times, current times, there can be anxiety, there can be panic, and that can also influence, and I start to feel that fear within myself. But also often, um, just in day-to-day situations, even if it's not a big pandemic or something else, what makes me feel or have that feeling of insecurity and fear? Sometimes it is the memories, isn't it? Even though at that time I might not be feeling it, it might be a memory that's triggered, and then I feel, oh, it's that experience that I had before that I feel perhaps it will happen again. And so that sense of then insecurity and that it might repeat then creates that feeling of fear within. But also sometimes, um, some of you may know, if you're in the field of psychology or otherwise, even other fields, areas have done research on this, that the fight and the flight response sometimes is triggered because it is stored in our bodies. So even if I don't want to have that feeling or that fear, sometimes the heart starts to beat faster, or some other feelings, breathing fast, or these things automatically, the body starts to respond or react in that way. And so these are some of the things um, that make us feel unsafe and create that feeling of fear. And sometimes it's something that, and this is a big thing for many, uh, where we find our childhood experiences, right? I've had certain, when I looked back at what is the cause of the feeling of why I'm having this feeling at certain situations, it traces back to our childhood experiences, and that is there stored in our subconscious mind. And then that also sometimes creates this feeling of insecurity, fear, and sometimes it's something to do with rejection, sometimes um, not being acknowledged or not enough being loved at that young age. And so some of these things then are stored in the subconscious mind, and then these can also become like a foundation for feeling unsafe in general, or some situations can trigger those feelings. But as we are hearing this, one of the things becomes quite clear, that the power of the mind can really help deal with this. But before we go into that, also to understand how the atmosphere affects us, when we are watching, when we are reading, when we are in the environment of perhaps violence and a lot of negativity. If that's what I'm taking in all the time, then that also results in me generating these feelings, because it's being stored. As I see something, then we know that that kind of plays in my mind, whether it's like a game, or even if playing a game of violence, but still, or watching something of violence, even if it's not real world, it's still something that's stored in my mind, and it creates that feeling of fear, or feeling of insecurity. And so, um, and perhaps we thought about feeling safe, but even if we think about our own lives and think of times when we have felt unsafe, what is it that changed? What is it that what happened that changed that feeling of um, unsafe? And for me, when I think about it, it's been sometimes we say, we talk about um, the feeling of love, right? It's very connected, safety and love, fear and love, very connected. And often we've heard about how fear, and we can say the opposite of fear is perhaps courage, or but also the opposite of fear is love. And often I've tried this with myself when I'm having maybe a sense of some feeling of fear, um, then to see if I can change that into a feeling of love. Because we've heard of the saying, where there's love, there's no fear, right? And so, how to generate this feeling of love that is all, that encompasses everything, so that whatever is going on, I'm still able to feel that safety and security. So we saw about how what makes us feel insecure, what makes us feel afraid. So one thing was about my own creation of thinking from perhaps different other memories, past memories and experiences, or something that I have been watching and hearing, and that is stored, and that comes out in situations. What if it happens like this, or what if it happens like that? And then thirdly, the childhood experiences. So how do we then deal with this? And then, of course, the atmosphere, right? Current situations of whatever is going on in the atmosphere. And so, with all this, these things in play, how can I get to a space where I feel safe, mostly, mm, in a consistent way? And not only for myself, but when I am feeling safe, then it's a very much an asset. I'm being an asset for anyone else in my company, because then I'm also um, radiating those vibrations of safety for others to be in my company, the atmosphere. And so one of the things we talked about was the power of the mind. And that in itself is a huge, huge topic. And I'm sure if you have been attending these sessions regularly, then you would have heard also about this. But essentially, what is happening when we say the feeling of unsafety or fear is, one is perhaps there is something in the body we talked about, the heartbeat going fast, or the breathing, or something in the stomach, but also my mind is creating a huge amount of negative and wasteful thoughts, in a sense that may not be true even, because most often, I know we say that much of what we think is doesn't necessarily happen. It's mostly just assumptions, or just out of fear, this assuming and suspicions, those, or doubts, those kind of thoughts, and it comes in a very fast speed. And so all of that is creating a feeling of unsafety. um, and so in that situation, really to turn around and see what I can do to train my mind to start to think positively, to start to create just even peaceful, pure, positive thoughts. And essentially, in meditation, Margaret was talking about the meditation that we practice, Raja Yoga. And here we talk about how the mind functions. And so it's not just about saying, okay, I'm getting these thoughts, and it's creating these feelings, but the understanding that I am a spiritual being and not just this physical body that I see day in and day out, but this light that I am, the being, I'm able to actually observe my thoughts and to actually change them, transform them, and create in space of that positive, pure thoughts. It takes a bit of practice, and we can do it bit by bit every day. We pay some attention. But that's essentially the key to be able to exercise the power of the mind. Because ultimately, whatever I'm creating in my mind is what I'm feeling, and whatever I'm going to be feeling and I'm going to be expressing is what is going in the atmosphere, and that is what is going to come back to me also. And so, just this paying attention to my mind, especially during the times when I'm feeling, my mind is going there's that voice, they call it sometimes the critical voice, and it just goes one after another, and it's really a fast speed. And sometimes in the teachings that we have, um, we are taught how, if you're not able to apply a brake, like when you're going, the car is going at a fast speed, and it's actually perhaps risky to apply a brake at that time, then you turn the car a little, so at least to avoid an accident. And so similarly, to turn the direction of my thinking, you can experiment with it, that when there is a flurry of negative or wasteful thinking, or somebody said something and it's triggered off a whole storm inside, or you read something and you saw something, there's a whole storm going on inside. And at that time, just to turn the direction and say, okay, what's happening, let's think of something positive in this, or um, something good, choose something good. And this is why it is also helpful to read something that will help me, every day. We'll come to that in a bit. But really, to train my mind to start to create positive and pure thoughts, because that is what is the starting point, um, for me to start to feel safe. Because whatever another person tells me, or I might have um, a lot of physical security around me, but if inside the feeling is of insecurity, so whatever the external security may be, I will still be having that fear. And so really, it's an inner work. And if I'm able to create that within myself, even if there isn't anything outside, I'm actually able to create that um, um, circle of protection around me because of the vibrations that I'm radiating. So, to train my mind, right? Um, and so every day to take a little bit of time and practice. One is taking a bit of time and sitting down and practicing, but also during the day to take bits of time, moments here and there, to practice, just creating peaceful thoughts, um, pure positive thoughts, affirmative thoughts that will help the mind to slow down and train the mind. But also, as we said, um, during the day, to pay attention to not to feed my mind with negative, too much negative. Yes, necessary, I need to know what's going on, I need to understand the situations, fine. But going into too much of negativity then starts to create a pattern of negative thinking. It does affect, if what I see through my eyes, what I hear through my ears, um, it definitely is being recorded. And so, as they say, the doors and the windows to the soul, the eyes and the ears, and so whatever is being fed through this is being recorded, and that is having an impact on the being, on the mind. And so, to be careful during the day, um, not to engage in that unnecessarily. So, the power of the mind, but also to make, to work with my mind in a way that, uh, like a child or like a friend, um, because it's like I'm with my mind all the time, mm, forever, eternal, for eternity. I'm with myself, as they say. So the company that I give myself is very important. Um, Often, when we nowadays, yes, we've had isolation times, and maybe some of you and some of us have experienced staying alone. If you've had ways of communicating, that's very good. But if not, do I enjoy my company? Because that is also an entry point for feeling safe. How do I enjoy my own company? Mm. And so, in a sense, without anything else, like no other external, listening to music or watching something, that's good. That's definitely helpful to calm things down, to relax. Very good. But without all that, am I able to just enjoy my own company of my own thoughts, um, and just, entertain myself with some good reflective conversations inside? Um, because that again is helpful for me to feel stable and safe, because everything in the external world is changing as we see today, right? Today something's there, today, tomorrow, no guarantee that it's going to be there as our support. Yes, in terms of our relationships, yes, that's very important, we support each other. But even that, we can really support another only when I myself am able to feel um, stable inside. And so, understanding this um, connection with the mind. And also, another aspect is, we say that we feel safe when we have um, a companion, right? If my companion is really um, strong, if I have a superhero as my companion, then I do feel safe, because in their company, I feel okay, I might be weak, but I have somebody who's really strong here. And so I'm safe, right? So that's another aspect of feeling safe. And so, really, making my mind my own best friend, but also, what helps um, is a good companion. My mind is a good companion to myself. And so, one of the aspects that we learn in Raj Yoga that's really um, helpful is understanding my core qualities, understanding my core original qualities of that of peace, love, joy. And so, one is training my mind, but the other aspect is really as I go within, and in that silent, quiet space, it's not an empty space, it's a space where I experience my own original quality of peace, of love, of joy, of truth. This is why when we say, when your mind is calm, we are able to see clearly what is it that I need to do now. Because often when I'm not feeling safe, there is panic, there is fear. And one of the first thing that it affects is my ability to discern, to see clearly, to decide what is it that I need to do now. But when my mind is able to be a bit more still, quiet, then I'm also able to discern. And that is a very key aspect of feeling safe, because then I'm able to actually see the route to safety. And there's so many stories about this where there are things like your natural calamities happening. Um, but to be able to feel at that time, what is it that I need to do? I remember one of our uh, brothers, when this twin tower incident happened, he was there and he was relating his experience about how the first hit had happened, and everybody were in a panic and running down the stairs. Um, and he at that time uh, was quite calm. This was his experience, that he felt calm. And in that state of calmness, he felt we should go out of the building. And so he was very clear that we need to go out of the building. And so he saw the route and he started to go down. And whoever was with him and whoever he could see, everybody left together. And then once they were out, it was the second hit. And so he was sharing the experience, like how when he was calm, there was no panic, then there's no fear, sense of fear, then we're able to see clearly what is it that I need to do right now. And so um, the feeling of safety is that one is training my mind, but also starting to experience the inner qualities of peace, love, joy within me, because that is also then going to um, color how I'm going to respond to situations. And so the aspects of taking time out and experiencing these qualities inside is going to strengthen my intellect so that I can discern clearly. But also some of the things that we feel causes a sense of unsafe, inside is little things in our lives when I'm not able to, in a sense, love myself. Hmm? Because that also, we talked about the connection between love and fear. And so, really changing that um, fear into love is very important. And the idea is that as I start to practice this, my self esteem, starts to increase as well. And so that also then gives me a sense of a feeling of love for the self, because that is also important. Because if I start to criticize when things go wrong, perhaps with the body, something's happening, if I start to complain and criticize and blame, again, that is only going to create a more negative vicious cycle. But if I can take it in stride and understand, yes, the feeling that I'm this being, this spiritual being, and create positive responses, then that is also changing the atmosphere of feeling safe. And so, really getting to know myself is very, very key in this. And so, spending time with myself, um, and having nice conversations with the self. You can share afterwards if you actually do that sometimes. But sitting down and just saying, okay, how are you? What's going on? Is everything okay? Really spending time to make my mind my friend, and give that love, and just giving really appreciative um, sentences or appreciative conversations, so that there is that feeling of love that's being created inside constantly. Because I have to take care. This is self care. Whatever is going on outside, I need to protect myself from it. And so, this is self care that I constantly feel that I'm being loved, by myself, being loved by myself. And so, one of the things that really helps with this is, again, a feeling of gratitude. There was a time recently when I was going through something physically, and um, at that time, this was very clear to me. The two words that I would like to keep in my heart, and I suppose that's also connected with feeling safe, is one is goodness, another is gratitude. So if through the day, sometimes it's challenging to keep that, but if through the day I can maintain this feeling of goodness, only goodness, and only gratitude. Sometimes it's necessary to exercise the goodness, and sometimes it's necessary to exercise gratitude. In some situations, this, and some situations, that. But not anything else, not to harbor, not to store anything else in my heart, but just to have goodness and gratitude. If I can do that, then most often I will find that then my heart is able to um, overcome any negative situation, and because of that, then I would feel safe. But also now, just thinking about other things, for example, um, acts of goodness. Because often one of the things we talk about in the Raja Yoga meditation is not just about our thinking, but also our actions. Because as we say, that the thoughts are seeds for the actions. And so when we talk about that, then what sort of actions am I performing? Because that is also going to give me a guarantee of um, what would come back as a return to me. Then that is also a sense of where I can sense feeling safe. You know, um, I'm going to talk about some of our senior sisters whom we call as daddies. And they were asked questions like, when they were in places of violence, they used to stay in centers of violence, in cities, in centers of violence. Then people would ask them about safety. Do you feel safe here? What if somebody comes with a mm, you know or shows up with a gun, points a gun at you? How would you feel? What would you do? And they would just look very surprisingly and say, but that could never happen. Nobody would have the power to do that, because of their incredible faith, and in their good karma, or the actions that's performed, and also the uh, the return that they would receive, that sort of a thing could never happen in their lives. And so, really, one of the other safety aspect is this, that if I pay attention to what actions that I'm performing through the day, if I'm going to give out love, I'm going to receive love. I'm going to give out goodness, then that's going to come back to me. But even if that doesn't come back, if something else come back, but still because of what I'm doing, I'll have the strength, the power within me to be able to face that. But if I have been reacting, to what's coming towards me, if my responses has been negative, then that also creates, already that's creating um, like a pathway for a return of that. So really to pay attention to those things. So some of the teachings in Raj Yoga that are fundamental helps again to feel safe. One of the aspects we talked about was um, the spiritual being that I am, and this eternal being, the being of light. And we often talk about how I, the soul, the spirit, the light, I'm eternal, immortal, in a sense that I always exist. Yes, this physical body is perishable, made up of the five elements of matter, but I, the soul, I'm spiritual, I'm a being of light, and I'm eternal. And so, this sense of that I'm a being that lives forever definitely starts to create a feeling of safety within, right? Because often when we identify ourselves with something that's perishable, again, there is a feeling of a fear of loss. Most often, um, the feeling of feeling unsafe is because of the fear of some sort of loss, right? Fear itself is because of some loss, and it could be something physical, um, or a fear of being hurt, or it is something that is like losing respect, or losing honor in front of others, whatever it may be, but usually it's that loss of something. And so understanding that I am this being of light, this spiritual being, and that I'm eternal gives me already a sense of security. mm, that okay, even if this body is going through something, but I can still exhibit peace, love. I was recently listening to one of our senior sisters' sharings, and then Daddy Janki, former, she's now passed away. Actually, today is 1 year since she passed away. She's the former head of the Brahma Kumaris. Some of you may have heard of her. And one of her sharings, she was saying about how, okay, whatever is going on with the body or anything else, you can still smile. Mm. You can still smile, and you can still, say loving things, or feel love inside. So that's a choice. Whatever is happening around me, it's a choice for me to choose my response of um, feeling, or smiling or loving, and also because I understand that I am this being of light, this spiritual being who's eternal. And this I can experience in meditation. um, yes, this physical identity is there, but beyond this, I'm this being of light. And this gives me definitely a feeling of security because I am forever, right? That's one thing. And then the other aspect is, again, when we're talking about perhaps feeling hurt, feeling maybe deceived, I know these feelings where there is that fear again of being deceived or being hurt. Again, when I work with myself and give myself that true company, then I can see that I can express my true qualities in the relationships, right? So even if there is a feeling of hurt coming from, or feeling of an insult or whatever is coming from the other side, I can exhibit peace and love. So there's always a choice. There's always a choice of my response. But you may say, but it doesn't always happen. It sometimes it's like it's an automatic response of not a feeling of anxiety, a feeling of wanting to say something back. Because it feels very natural to do that. How can they say something to me? I would definitely say this. But then here, what we understand and what we learn is that yes, I may say that at that moment, but what is it going to return? What is the return of it? What am I planting here? And so, if I take a moment to pause and plant something positive in that as my response, then again, I'm creating that circle of safety around me. Because whatever I put out is going to come back, it's going to return. And so, just taking moments in the day to practice this, that I am this being of light, I am this eternal being. And then talking about the world, mm, it suddenly seems like a world of darkness today. Um, a lot of question marks. What is to come? What is happening? Sometimes we feel yes, it's going to now break through. We're going to be fine, and then another wave. So, what to do? And another aspect of our teachings that really help is we talk about a time when after the night there is always the day. We feel safe knowing that yes, there is the day coming, right? So we don't fear the night because we know the day is coming every single day. And so similarly, the understanding that now is the time that we're going through is of darkness, yes, but it's making way for the day. And so we can be part of that. We can be part of moving towards that by changing our thinking, our perspective, changing our vibrations. Because the key thing also to understand is our thoughts not only create our feelings, but they create vibrations. And it's very, very key that we keep our thoughts positive, pure, loving, so that the vibrations that I create around me is that of one of safety. Because what happens is sometimes I might not say anything, but if I'm having negative and wasteful thoughts, what's happening is I'm creating a vibration of fear. And you know what? It attracts danger. No, we know that, right? We know that, like, we know that with animals, when the animals attack, when there is feelings of fear, when there is, when there's fear. And so it's the vibrations that pull danger towards me as well. And so really working on the power of my mind. So making my mind my best friend, making my mind my good companion, um, with understanding this aspect about the soul being eternal, and that's my true identity. It's possible to feel that. But also one of another aspect that we talk about, um, also which I have personally experienced of great benefit, is the presence and the connection of the Supreme, the Divine God, because that also helps in a way to, um, when you have, we were talking about a parent, when a child feels safe when there is a parent around. And so in a similar way, when I'm able to become aware of myself as this being of light, then I'm able to also connect with the Supreme. Hmm? It's like the powerhouse, the Almighty. And in that connection, there is safety. Mm. Because sometimes, we may turn to God, to the Supreme, when there's nothing else all around, then we look up, right? So if I can practice that even on a daily basis, just having that connection, um, like a child to a parent, or even just connecting to the Supreme, who is, um, able to share unconditional love, peace, joy, like the sun, which is completely giving all the time. And so the presence of that one then makes me feel safe under like a canopy, which is a canopy of all the rays of goodness. Mm. And under that canopy, then I start to feel safe as well. And so many aspects about how I can feel safe, and um, really taking care of my mind and keeping these aspects of truth of who I am and connection with the Supreme. And so I will stop here and we'll have meditation, and then there will be an opportunity for questions. Yeah. So sit back and relax. And I'll share my thoughts. I take a few deep breaths and completely relax. I'm in the present moment. And I take my attention to the center of my forehead. I'd like to go on an inner journey to meet myself. And so on the screen of my mind, I visualize a tiny point of light. Like a star a bright spark, radiating rays. There is the physical identity that I see every day in the mirror, but this tiny spark of light is who I am. The soul, the spirit, the life, the being. And deep within, there's the awareness that I am forever. I always exist. And with this comes a feeling of stability. I am eternal, immortal, imperishable. And I feel very safe in this space. And from this space of safety, I'm able to access my inner qualities, peace, so deep within me. In this silence, I experience a deep sense of peace. A peace that's my own creation. A peace that I am. And in this state of being, I remember and become aware of my Supreme Parent, a spark of light, an ocean of love, a love that's so empowering and yet so gentle. And deep within this ocean of love, there is stillness. And this heals all the hurt and wounds that I, the soul, may have. And any sense of fear is replaced with love. And in this space of love and peace, there's a sense of cleanliness. And purity. And so this space cannot harbor anything negative or even wasteful feelings. And so there's a deep sense of safety and security. That I'm able to share with everyone around me and out into the world. So I learned to take care of my mind by giving spaces of silence, training my mind by creating beautiful, positive, pure thoughts. And by doing this in a time of crisis, my mind helps by returning with pure, positive, empowering thoughts. Om Shanti. Om. I'm a being of light, Shanti, and peace. So, some question time. Okay, so there's a question here. Please, can you explain how I can slow down the thoughts coming to my mind? Yes. So, the understanding is that most often, and you can notice yourself, when the thoughts are negative and wasteful, the speed is quite fast, right? Usually that is the situation when you're thinking this person said this, or how can do they do this, or why is the situation like this. There's either questions um, or just creating one after another and after another. The speed is quite fast. But when you look at positive, pure thoughts, you see that the speed is automatically slow, more experiential. And so the idea is that I take some time out to practice creating pure positive thoughts. And so it's like, how you would exercise your muscles, right? You would you wouldn't lift something too heavy if you know that you don't have that way, if you don't have that capacity. And so you would exercise the muscles every day a little bit, you give some time, and then it becomes stronger. In the same way, I give some time for my mind, like this meditation times. You can give 10 minutes, 15 minutes in the morning and evening, and during the day, taking a minute out here and there out. We have something called as a traffic control that we do every hour of the hour for a minute or a few minutes. So in that time, we again uh, consciously create pure positive thoughts. So it's training the mind in those times. And so during the day as well, if I have given that time for the mind to exercise them, then during the day I will see that my mind is more in control. Where is the power within the soul? Is it the mind or the intellect? It's a good question. We talked about the power of the mind, but the power is in different aspects, right? So we talk about, if you do the Raj Yoga course, then you would get more information, more detailed information about this. But we talk about the three faculties of the soul, of the being. And the mind is one, the intellect is one, another one we call as the sanskars, or the instincts and habits and the memories and the experiences in the soul. And so we talk about the power of the mind, the power of the intellect, and the power of the sanskars. So, how each of them function. And so, how each of them function is accordingly, the soul is powerful according to that. So, understanding how I'm using my mind. So, the power of the mind is huge. So, it can have a huge impact, either positive or negative. And so, same way, the intellect, if I'm discerning in the right way, then the impact is in that way. But if I'm discerning in another way, then I'm going to create or go with those kind of thoughts, which is going to create havoc or chaos. Again, the power of the sanskars that I'm using, if they're negative and it's triggering something else, then that's going to, but if it's going to be positive, then it's a positive impact. So, how I use my mind, my intellect, the power of my mind, the intellect, and the sanskars is the soul being powerful in that sense, able to function. hmm, And this is why we often share that the soul is in charge. And when we talk about, I'm not my mind is in me, but I'm not my mind. So that I'm able to create the right thoughts. And so use the power of the mind, use the power of the intellect in the right way. And that means the soul is powerful to be able to do that. What do you value the most in your life? I suppose that is your choice of safety. Yes, didn't fully get the question, but if you're saying that what you value the most in your life is where your safety lies, yes, very true. Um, but also, am I exercising it in the right way. If I value my time, am I using the time in the right way? If I value myself, if I am I then taking care of myself? When we say value, but am I doing justice to say that I'm valuing that? When you are faced with a difficult situation, what is the first thing that you do? I remember this was one of the questions when I was working many years ago. Um, we often used to have situations where there are issues coming up. I used to work with the IT field, and there's constantly something coming up. And one of my managers came to me, and this is a question he asked as to when you get an email about there's this issue, what is the first thought that you have? You're saying what is the first thing that you do, but really, uh, I think for me personally, I would see what is my first thought about it, because already I'm planting a seed uh, as a response to that situation. And it takes time to pay attention to see what is my first response. But as I keep practicing and keep changing it into positive, then that becomes the seed for anything else that follows in terms of actions. And so if I'm expecting something, like for example, I need to get somewhere, not like daily situations, and I come out and there's this huge traffic. So what is my thought? Oh no, we're gonna get late. How can this happen? Da, 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 da. That's the starting point of who knows what I would do. But if my starting point is of, oh, okay, so this is a situation, what can we do now? How can we make the best of this? So what, if I turn my attention to that, then what follows is going to be something positive. I like to go for a walk and take time out during the day. However, when I do this, I find my mind creates a very critical voice. Why does it come when I want to create time for myself? Any suggestions is what I can do. It's very good that you do this. You take time out. It's very essential. And why the critical voice comes when I take time for myself? Perhaps other times I don't hear it. I'm busy. I'm busy during the day with people, with mobile phones, with devices, with things, in my ears all the time. So I'm not actually hearing what is going on. But when I'm by myself, then I'm constantly hearing, right? I'm hearing what's going on inside. And so, um, how to change this critical voice? Self love and self care and boosting my self esteem. So I can read about it, I can reflect on it. But really, just sitting down and saying, even when the critical voice comes, just to start loving the self. What is the things that I can see in myself that are good? And start saying positive things to myself. Notice it more during the day, not just when I go out for a walk, but during the day. Well done, that was good. That was good. Just to how you would treat your friend, to treat my own self in that way. And somewhere I heard about leaving notes for myself. Like how you would leave a note to your friend. So leaving notes for myself here and there so I can read it. Okay. Just creating a loveful attitude for the self. Think of all the times that you stood up for yourself and creating that self-love. That is what is going to help. And just having a gentle soft attitude towards that. There's something that's happened perhaps in the childhood that I've created a defense mechanism. And then because of the defense mechanism, this critical voice, keeps coming. But just to stop and say, no, is that true? No, that's not really true, is it? Just to have this conversation more and more with myself and creating that self love. But also, this aspect of, we talked about the company of the Supreme, because that unconditional love also helps to heal the soul a lot. The unconditional love of God, the divine, is something that helps to heal even very, very deep wounds or hurts. And so, yeah, creating self love. How do you begin a genuine conversation with the self when you're in an environment that is not safe? Yeah, that can be difficult. Um, but one of the things that we learn and we understand, and I have personally experimented and seen that it works, is this aspect of goodness. That each of us beings of light, souls, spiritual beings, we um, all have goodness as our intrinsic qualities. All of us, whatever behavior we may be exhibiting at this point in time, but all of us are intrinsically good, in the sense of peace, love, happiness is our intrinsic qualities. Yes, during our journey of life, we have been through many situations, and because of that, our actions, because what we see as our identity has changed, our roles, and we see ourselves in different roles, and the egos come up, so many things. So, because of that, we have changed, our behavior has changed, but intrinsically, all of us have that goodness. And so, keeping that as a point of focus for myself, starting with the self, um, and for others, so that I'm not having a critical vision of others or the environment, I can start the conversation. Um, And this is why even in our meditations, when we say Om Shanti, I'm a being of peace. And it's not just for saying it, but we understand that that's who I am in original state, all of us. And so keeping that vision of goodness for my own self and each one can be a starting point for a conversation within the self, because it's also true that when we started our journey, we were all in that state of um, peace, love, and happiness. And so I can keep that as my focus point to start the conversation.